Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Minds and Machines 2017. Please welcome to the stage President and CEO of New York Power Authority, Gil Quiñones.
Good morning. My name is Gil Quiñones. I'm the Chief Executive Officer and President of the New York Power Authority, also known as NYPA. I'm so excited to be here today to tell you about our journey of becoming the first, I repeat, the first digital utility in the United States. But before I take you on that journey, allow me to tell you a little bit about NYPA. NYPA is the largest state-owned electric utility in the United States. 75% of the power that we produce comes from very large hydroelectric power plants, such as our Niagara Power Project, which is 2,700 megawatts. We also own about 1/3 of the high-voltage transmission system in our state. Think of it as the backbone of New York. And together with our large hydroelectric power plants, the shock absorber of the system. And that's very important because as we integrate more and more renewables in New York to hit our target of producing electricity, 50% of our electricity from renewable energy by 2030, our hydroelectric power, this shock absorber, is really critical. Now, the electrons that propel our subways, 600 miles of subway tracks and airports in New York City, that's NYPA. The electrons that power our manufacturing plants and industries across New York State, that's NYPA. The electrons that serve 51 municipal and community-owned utilities all across New York State, that's NYPA. More recently, the utility that sent 22 of its experts to Puerto Rico a day and a half after Maria landed in Puerto Rico. And by the way, they're still there. They're helping. Thank you. They're assessing 350 substations, about a dozen power plants, helping out troubleshooting, restarting power plants, and placing back transmission systems in service. I'm very, very proud of them. I was there last weekend. And yes, that is NYPA. So, you might think, we are in this great GE Minds and Machine conference, and you're wondering, why is digital technology a centerpiece or a cornerstone of NYPA's strategy? There are three major trends that are disrupting the electric utility: decentralization, electrification, and digitization. This power grid that we know today, one-way power flow from power plants, transmission system, distribution, customers, that is completely being disrupted. And the grid is becoming more decentralized, multi-flow, intelligent energy network. That's what's happening in the utility industry, and it's happening very, very fast. Second is electrification. Because of technology innovation, many of our processes are being electrified to increase energy productivity and to decarbonize every sector of our economy. And both trends, decentralization and electrification, is being enabled, it's being accelerated by digitization. And these three trends, decentralization, electrification, and digitization, is really pushing and accelerating the transformation and the disruption in the utility sector. Now, in New York, we want to make sure that that transformation includes and reaches everyone. We cannot create a new set of energy haves and have-nots. So as we are embracing digital technology in New York, as we are reforming the energy vision, we are laser focused on achieving one goal as we create this decentralized, intelligent energy network. And that is to significantly improve the capacity utilization of the power grid, to significantly improve the system efficiency of the power grid. And that can only be accomplished through digitization. Now, why is that important? It is important because it is not sufficient to have an intelligent, safe, reliable, and clean energy grid. It must be affordable. It must provide access. It must provide opportunities for all. In New York, as we make our choices, policy choices, regulatory choices, legislative choices, we embrace the principle: if it's not for all, then it's not for us. So, what do I mean when I say end-to-end digital utility? First, it has to be end-to-end. Every sector of the value chain, or every part of the value chain of the utility, must be digitized, inside and out. But more importantly, a digital utility places the customer at the center of the transformation. A digital utility innovates. A digital utility creates new business models and transforms the customer experience. A digital utility measures its success based on the success of its customers. At NYPA, that's what we mean when we say end-to-end digital utility. Now, let me brag a little bit about the cool and amazing things we're starting to build at the New York Power Authority. We're building 3 digital hubs. First, what we're calling New York Energy Manager. New York Energy Manager is a digital service, energy service to our customers, where we're digitizing, creating digital twins of the energy systems of the buildings and facilities of our customers. We have about 10,000 buildings, and we've created 10,000 digital twins of those buildings in New York State. And we're looking to scale that up to 20,000 buildings by 2020. Exciting stuff. We've never had it as close a working relationship with our customer before this service. And we're just discovering and co-discovering things with our customers in this journey. The second digital hub that we're building at NYPA is called the Integrated Smart Operations Center. Here, we're creating digital twins of our power plants, our substations, our transmission lines, to radically improve their operational efficiency and also to monitor the health of those assets real time, all the time. It is also the place where we will monitor our cybersecurity, physical security, our dedicated communications network and portfolio of strategic software, and a place that we can instantly convert to be our emergency operations center if we need it. This is a first of its kind anywhere. our integrated smart operations center. Inside this center, we will build our third digital hub. It's called the Advanced Grid Innovation Lab for Energy. And in that lab, we will digitize in very granular way, very dynamic way, the entire grid of New York State, starting with the generation and transmission system. We're going to be working, aside from working with GE, we're going to be working with all of the utilities in New York State and our independent system operator. And we're doing this to really accelerate the transformation from having this central one-way power flow grid to a decentralized, intelligent energy network. Now, there will be a unique and one common characteristic amongst all three digital hubs. They will also serve as digital foundries, or places where our partners, technology companies, people from universities, other utilities, original equipment manufacturers will come, use our data, use our platform to further innovate and to create new products and services and solutions for all kinds of customers, and really create an innovation ecosystem from an energy perspective in New York. Now, why New York? Well, for NYPA and for GE, this story is really about coming back to our roots, hearkening us back to where it all began, in New York. And, you know, Thomas Edison in 1882 built the first power plant in Lower Manhattan along Pearl Street. And Nikola Tesla enabled long-distance transmission of electricity 22 miles from Niagara Falls to Buffalo. So it is really a story about our roots, GE and NYPA partnering again and creating this digital utility and having this unique opportunity, I would say an opportunity of a lifetime, to reimagine and reinvent this power grid that we know today into a digitized, intelligent energy network of the future for the benefit of all. So I call upon all of you, help us write the story, collaborate with us, partner with us, hop on this journey, because I guarantee to each and every one of you that it will be an amazing and hell of a ride. Thank you.
A Series 3 locomotive calculates its ideal speed using an onboard wireless data center. A single wind turbine contains over 150 onboard sensors that operate in 150 mile-per-hour winds. One jet engine contains 12,124 individual components, generating 10 gigabytes of data per second. In this data, most would see an engine that should be serviced every 30 days. We see an engine that should be serviced based on where it will fly next. A turbine that predicts power demand based on the weather. And a locomotive that understands how it will operate decades from now. We work in the places this data comes from, design the machines that generate it, and build the applications that unlock outcomes for industry. 960 partners, 33,000 developers, 80,000 industrial engineers, hundreds of thousands of assets under management. On one application platform designed for industry. Predix. Now is the time for digital industrial transformation. Transform your industry.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairman and CEO of GE, John Flannery.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to be with all of you at Minds and Machines. This is my first as CEO of GE. Love hearing Nipa's story. It's one of the many customer stories that we'll share with you over the next 2 days. Customer first in our environment here, including in the presentation sequence, so don't miss the message there. And that shout out for Thomas Edison always goes over in the big house, so thanks to Gil for that. So before we get started, I did want to just start and say our hearts and wishes really go out to the thousands of people who've been impacted by these incredible fires in Northern California. And the GE Foundation has made a gift of $250,000 to the American Red Cross to support the ongoing relief efforts. It's an incredible job they're doing, and we hope these contributions are helpful. So if there's one thing I hope you take away from today's session, tomorrow's session, it's this. A few years ago, just a few short years ago, the idea of a digitized industrial company was just that, an idea. No precedent, no playbook, concept. Today, this is a reality. We know this because we at GE, we've gone through a process of becoming a digitized industrial company. We always had high hopes for this. The more we see, the more we like it. We pursue this with a conviction and a passion like never before, and a focus like never before. So we are all in terms of digital. More importantly, perhaps, as you'll hear throughout the session, customers are seeing tangible benefits because of this transformation. So we know this digital transition is real. We also know in spades it is not easy. So one of the things I'll talk about today really is how we all can deliver on the promise of digital. And yes, it's hard, but it's also fundamentally an existential issue for industrial world. We need to get there faster than ever because it matters to the world. We are not talking about marginal changes around the edges. This is about quantum, meaningful improvement in industries and people's lives everywhere around the world. It's entirely new ways to power the world, heal the sick, build economies, move people and goods safely and efficiently. And it's important, it's about problems that can't be solved just by software alone. We need cohesive systems, things that include domain expertise, services approaches, deep understanding of hardware, physics, how things are built, deep understanding of markets, governments, regulatory environments, deep understanding of leadership, change management inside companies. This is hard, incredibly important, very hard. The good news is GE knows how to do hard things. That's what we've done for 125 years. Thomas Edison's lab painstakingly tested 1,600 different materials before finding the right filament for a light bulb. One of the most consequential inventions the world's ever seen. I'm sure they would have appreciated some machine learning back in the day for that. 30 years ago, in GE's labs, engineers developed magnets 30,000 times stronger than the Earth's magnetic field. Those magnets went on to become the MRI machine, which has allowed doctors to see inside the human brain. And that has transformed medicine in amazing ways. So if you think about that leap from a magnet to an MRI and apply that to the challenge and opportunity that we have today, we're taking on the total transformation of industry. A new kind of industrial revolution. It's happening, you heard from Gil, at an unprecedented scale, unprecedented speed. So it's no longer enough about building incredible machines. The company that just builds machines will not survive. We need to build an integrated, ecosystem, one that's made up of machines, but people, software, supply chains, totally integrated, driving towards a common goal, and that has to be higher productivity and better outcomes for customers. Improving customer outcomes is the ultimate scorecard here. It's really the only scorecard here. When we think about the industrial company of the future, it's still going to build machines, but these machines are going to have a capacity to sense, predict, respond with greater speed and insights than anybody ever imagined. The industrial company of the future is going to use new tools like additive manufacturing, a whole network of 3D printers, transforming manufacturing, making products that are more efficient, much stronger, much less expensive. It's going to add key elements to its toolkit, including artificial intelligence, augmented virtual reality. And it's going to change the way people work. It'll throw out the traditional workforce paradigm and evolve towards a gig economy that engages the best internal and external global talent in a dynamic roles. It's going to be very different. Every employee will have a basic understanding of coding. Every job will be augmented by software skills. So this notion of the digital industrial company of the future, this is how we are reimagining GE. This is what we wake up and crave every morning. Because we're living this transformation, we know what it takes to deliver results. And we know that no one company or individual can transform an industry alone. It requires a totally new kind of partnership. But before we get into the how of conquering this challenge, we want to take a moment and really understand the scope of the challenge, or it's something we call the digital gap. So today we're unveiling new research, shows quite a wide gap between what we know is possible in the digital industrial space and the concrete steps that companies are actually taking to make this transformation a reality. We all think we're on a path to get there very quickly, but our learnings suggest otherwise. It's one thing to want a digital transformation, that's step one. It's quite another thing entirely to actually do it. So we talked to key decision makers across industry and learned a lot of things. They're facing tremendous cost pressure, may not have the capital they need to invest in transforming their organizations. They also don't believe they currently have the in-house skills that they need, the technologies they need to drive change. And just a couple of points I thought were most relevant from this research. Right now, the vast majority of companies, over 85% of the companies out there, see digital transformation as absolutely critical to the future of their companies. That said, only 13%, 13% say they have a digital transformation plan in place. So clearly, there's quite a gap here, digital gap here. 85% say this is critical, 13% feel good about where they are. So it's a journey. Like any journey, bridging this gap begins with small steps. Steps can help you build the right capabilities, help you move in the right direction. Big message today, we are ready and willing and eager to be your partner in this journey. And here's what that means. Over the coming days, we'll provide you with blueprints to help you. We'll share examples of strategies that you can adapt to get more out of your industrial asset, your plant. These offerings are going to help you measure your return on investment. They're going to improve business returns. And we'll walk you through specific technologies that will help you bridge the skills gap. We know we can help you accelerate your transformation because we have been through it, we are going through it ourselves. And I've seen this firsthand for the last 3 years while I was running our healthcare business. We learned a lot along the way. We know it takes culture change, skills development, and technology implementation to transform businesses and scale the operation. We know we need to lead here where we're strong. So going forward, GE is going to have a very focused digital strategy. We're going to prioritize our go-to-market in 2 key areas. First, our resources are going to focus heavily on what we call our verticals, leveraging what we know and what we do best in energy, in oil and gas, aviation, healthcare, transportation, mining. This is the wheelhouse of GE. In addition to that, we're going to continue to work with our customers to address their adjacent markets and other industrial categories. But we're going to be more selective in doing that directly and do this largely through partners. Partners are going to be a key pillar of our digital strategy going forward. So here's what that looks like in practice. For customers, it comes down to a complete integrated asset strategy, understanding how assets fail, ensuring that key activities like maintenance, inspections, overhauls, they're in place and ready to mitigate the risk of failure. By connecting engines, rigs, plants in the field with APM, you can then implement digital twin models of these assets. And once you've done that, these digital twin models allow you to continuously monitor emerging threats, proactively manage risks, predict and prevent failure, optimize your overall asset strategy. And we know that translates into results: minimize downtime, optimize costs, reduce risk, better safety, improve productivity for your service team. The proof is there. It also frees up a lot of resources and investment for other things. It is a complete game changer, and that is why we built Predix. So Predix underpins a suite of applications, from asset performance management to field service transformation and beyond, and they allow us to go from data to insight to action to outcome. Our customers are getting real results. We're going to share that with you through that, and it's on the backs of our customer success that we're gaining traction. GE has seen 100% growth year over year in orders for our Predix-powered offerings. So let me share 3 examples with you of this in play in real life. First, Australian airline Qantas asked us to help them increase their operational flexibility, fuel efficiency, reduce carbon emissions. These are big things in their industry. Together with Qantas, we took more than 10 billion data points and fed them into an application built on Predix that could identify fuel efficiency gains, offer operational insights to pilots. And that app, which is called Flight Pulse, was the first mobile application developed 100% on Predix. With Flight Pulse, pilots can see their own flight data, their own behaviors on their iPads. They can track best practices. They can change how they behave. And the results are huge. Last year, Qantas realized a 1% reduction in fuel spend as a result of the work they did with GE. 1% may not sound like much to you. In the airline industry, that is enormous. That's equal to 30 million kilograms of fuel. It's a major, major number in that industry. This year, this Flight Pulse app has been rolled out to now 1,700 pilots. And with the addition of those pilots, they've already doubled that amazing number from last year, year to date. So the driving force behind this transformation, time and again, data. When you have data, you can put it to work. You get insights, you change behaviors, you deliver results. Next example, Port of Los Angeles, largest container port in the world. Maybe home to the World Series champion. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out this week. But over 9 million containers coming through this port every year, carrying goods vital to this nation's economy. For GE itself, the Port of LA is a critical part of our supply chain. GE Transportation's locomotives provide connectivity between the port, customers and consumers across the country, including us, sending, receiving goods. A slowdown of just one shipment can congest the entire port and create a bottleneck that impacts everyone's supply chain. So here's how we're partnering with the port to make these efficiencies a reality by taking the shipping process from incredibly paper-based to digital. Great. So let me just make real what we just saw here. By integrating data from literally dozens of sources, shipping lines, railroads, trucking companies, into one common portal, we provided visibility to all players in the shipping process and accelerated their visibility, widened their visibility from 2 days to 2 weeks. This is massive. And the results, all parties know what's coming, what's going, when. It has been a complete game changer to the throughput of this facility. Container volumes are at a record high at the Port of LA. And this digital solution, as you saw in the video, it's driving productivity, improving the flow of goods by 8 to 12%. A massive number on a mature operation. And the last example I'd like to share with you is one of our customers, Hubco. Hubco is a power company in Pakistan, supplies about 10% of the country's electricity. Pakistan is facing a 4 gigawatt power shortage. More than 140 million people in Pakistan, almost half the population of the US, have no power or suffer through 12 hours of blackouts every day. And Hubco and GE have a shared vision, a simple vision, compelling vision, provide affordable, reliable, sustainable power in Pakistan. Their vision is to increase production from 1,500 megawatts to 5,000 in 5 years. That's a huge ramp. They have a facility that's fueled with very expensive furnace oil, a diesel engine plant in need of reliability improvements. They've got big aspirations, big challenges. We're deploying digital solutions, including operations optimization, APM. These things are optimizing Hubco's operations, their assets, reducing downtime, improving efficiency. 3.5% efficiency gain. Again, in the power industry, that is a massive number. $20 million of savings per year in fuel. So these improvements are enabling Hubco to invest more in growing their business and delivering more power to the people of Pakistan. We could not be more proud to be associated with Hubco. So now what? What should you expect going forward? This is ultimately all about you. Every day we listen to your feedback and we're working on products that address the digital gap that we both see together. I talked about that earlier. So today we're announcing a few of those products. You'll hear about this in greater detail from all of my colleagues over the next 2 days, but I'll provide you just a quick overview of some of the solutions that we're offering to help you and your teams bridge the digital gap. First, you already have been introduced to APM. That's the core application we have for driving value from your assets. We've now developed and refined an important complementary application, and that improves the overall performance, not just of a specific asset, but of your related assets. Things like pumps and valves and heat exchangers, the broader footprint of a manufacturing or operating environment. And that drives really the ability to have a comprehensive asset management strategy. This new application is called Operations Performance Management, powered by Predix. Second, Predix Studio is a toolkit that just makes it easier for your developers to build applications on Predix in a low-code, highly productive environment. Essentially, we're taking the heavy lifting out of application development in an industrial setting. And so with Predix Studio, your employees on the front line can ramp up developing apps for APM without hiring and waiting for specialized IT staff. It just creates overall a much faster, much more efficient, much more energizing experience for customers. And then lastly, as we all know, nowhere is edge computing more important or more relevant than in the industrial world. These days, it seems that everything is an edge device. Your watch, your car, even your shoes. But for the industrial world, this is real and it's critical. The assets are the edge. Engines, rigs, plants, real things, critical infrastructure. And these assets need to be connected and allow real-time safety and productivity decisions to be made. So in this environment, having the right answer or interesting analytics too late is maybe interesting, maybe not even that, but essentially it's useless and sometimes quite dangerous. Predix is the only platform built as an edge-to-cloud computing environment for industrial applications. Only GE really understands the complexity and the differences around the settings for these assets. Security issues, data governance, regulatory requirements operating in these spaces. So today we're announcing enhancements to our Predix Edge offering, including complex event processing at the edge and edge management enhancements for better scale, better provisioning, stronger security. And then finally, when you compute at the edge, you need to connect to the cloud. And last year, we announced a strategic partnership with Microsoft to deliver Predix on Azure. Today, I'm pleased to announce that Predix on Azure is available on public preview. It'll be generally available on November 30th. Azure is a preferred cloud partner for Predix, and with the release of Predix on Azure, we will be providing customers the ability to leverage the power of Microsoft Cloud. Over the next 2 days, we'll share more about these other offerings that we have designed to help bridge the digital gap. I think you're going to love the show here. The company I joined 30 years ago, August 1987, that company made machines that made the world better. We're still that company, but the world has changed unbelievably. The industrial world has to change with it. To solve some of the biggest problems in the world, you have to solve the whole problem. It's not just the machine. It means digital solutions that connect the hardware, the services, create new business models. Everything's different now. Digital can't just be a side project run by the IT department. It's a wholesale transformation of companies made up of machines, people, software, supply chains, fully integrated, completely driving towards a common goal. So collectively, we know from experience and effort, we have the industry expertise and scale. We have it in this room right now, customers, partners, GE, developers. We have the expertise and scale to close this digital gap and deliver on the promise that we see coming forward. I look forward to doing this with you. GE is here to support you. And now I'd like to bring a very important partner of ours on stage. Microsoft is a strategic partner for GE. We're both committed to realizing the value of OT and IT together. Bringing the two together through this partnership we have will unlock tremendous value for our joint customers. And I'd like to thank you for coming, and please join me in welcoming Satya Nadella. Great. We just happen to have some furniture around back, so we thought we'd bring it out. So, Satya, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. We're really excited about our announcements today and our partnership with you, and we thought we'd spend a few minutes talking about that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John, for having me here. It's a real pleasure.
Great. So first question really about the world as we know it today. So there's obviously this whole, the industrial world, technology development's getting a ton of attention today. We just talked about connecting IT with operational technology systems. Microsoft has been absolutely at the center of this. What's your advice for the people in the audience, people watching, about how you're helping customers make that leap? You've got so many things. You've got current solutions, you know, O365, Azure, et cetera. How are you guys seeing this right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you captured it even in your remarks earlier today. The age we are living in, if I had to characterize it, is about creating these digital feedback loops that ultimately help impact some outcome, irrespective of which industry you are, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in energy. It's that ability to obviously change the outcome, but the means to that end is these digital feedback loops. Exactly. And it's not as if digital technology is new in all of these industries. I mean, there has been great application of digital tech. But I would say the thing that is different this time is it's not just a system of record that's just tracking something else that's happening, or even just a system of engagement, but what I describe as these systems of intelligence that are truly transformative. I mean, the metaphor that I think grew out of the industrial internet, the digital twin, is a great one. The asset having a digital twin that changes the asset is a pretty phenomenal invention in some sense. But the interesting thing is it doesn't stop at the asset. In fact, if you look at even the Predix platform and how you're building it, you start with the asset and the digital feedback loop around it. But then you go and say, let's in fact do something around preventive maintenance and field service. So that means the core business processes that are around the asset also have to be in their own feedback loop. So if you have your field service and the operations digitized, but you can't stop there. That means the customer feedback loop, the skills feedback loop, because you got to get the right person with the right skills.
All the way through.
All the way through. So that's where I think the profound change is happening. Digital technology is no longer just about IT supporting OT. It's that IT and OT coming together as one capability to help you transform your outcomes. And that's our role as Microsoft, is to build the platforms and tools. In our case, we're building the intelligent cloud and the intelligent edge. You're building a platform in Predix. And that's kind of the real beauty of it is, which is each of us are able to bring our tools, our platforms, they compose ultimately to help customers build their own platforms.
Exactly. Great. So we'll talk, you referenced tools. So we've talked culture's important, tools are important. I'll get to culture in a second. But tools, key. We're huge users of Office 365. There's more and more tools coming that you're bringing more of a consumer feel and working in an industrial environment. What are the trends you see around tools and how they'll change in terms of enterprise setting, industrial setting?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There are a couple of important things for us, which is in a world where every company now is a software company, every company is a digital company, one of the things that has been of paramount importance to us as Microsoft was to be very clear about two things. Who are we? What's our identity? And what is our business model? And ultimately, we are a tool provider. And because trust in the long run is about not having boundaries crossed around what we do versus what our customers are, their core business is. So when I think about tools, we think about broadly. And one of the areas, we talk a lot about customers, we talk a lot about the assets, we talk a lot about the outcomes. But one place where we need to start our investment is with our own people. There is no transformation with customers or products and services that can be achieved without transforming how you empower the people inside your organization. How do they collaborate? I mean, that's where I think even what we have done beyond Predix, when I was even looking backstage, people communicating, collaborating, putting the show together, the communications infrastructure for it. But it's not even just the knowledge workers, but it's even the field workers. One of the things that I'm very excited is to see some of the latest and greatest technology that Microsoft is producing, like the HoloLens, is not just showing up with designers, but it's showing up with frontline workers. And in fact, connecting the designer and the frontline workers so that they can get their jobs done well. So what we are doing in Office 365 or what we're doing in HoloLens both come together to fundamentally transform. They're ultimately tools in the hands of people as they thrive in this digital world.
Is that a process you use? Do you try out all these tools inside the company and see if the dog eats the dog food, as they say?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. You know, it's for me, in fact, when I think about even my own day, it is all about being able to connect with the work that's going on inside the company and also the work that's going on with our customers. So I mean, every morning I start by, in fact, looking at the Yammer Digest, because as a CEO, one of the things I've realized, John, is that it's easy to get deluded. So you need to be in touch with 100,000 people and what they're buzzing about. So Yammer keeps me honest And then I have all my notes in OneNote for every meeting. The way we communicate with the 150 people at Microsoft, I use Teams, which is a collaboration tool. Of course, I use Outlook.
What do you get out of Yammer, just out of curiosity?
For me, Yammer is the best way to keep my hand on the pulse of Microsoft. In fact, it's the easiest way for me to scan left to right and say, what are people thinking? What are the issues?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me that every day I find something new, that they're buzzing about something that may not have been my first thing that I would have thought of in the morning. That means it's organic. There's no other mechanism. It's the
How much time do you spend? Can you get that in 5-10 minutes? Or?
Yeah, in fact, we have two things. I have something called the CEO connection page. And so then I take the top, it's kind of like trending topics. So I get it in, in the 2 minutes in the morning, I'm able to at least see what the trending topics inside the company are.
Maybe, Satya, look forward. So we talked kind of about today's environment. We talked earlier about just a digital company of the future, culture, tools, mindset. What does that look like to you? How big of a change is this going to be? How do companies stay ahead? How do they learn? We'll talk about that in a minute. But is it going to be a constant, sense of falling behind, or what's the future hold for everyone?
I mean, it's a fascinating question. It's a tough question. And when I look at GE, I mean, this is the company that was founded by Thomas Edison, and here you are talking about digital technology. And there is...
He'd be happy about that, I'm certain of that.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And therein lies, I think, how does one renew constantly? The thing at least I've come to realize, at least at a meta framework level, is this interlock that one achieves when they're successful between the concept or the idea, the capability, and the culture, right? So when GE went from being a startup to being a successful company, the first idea, the capability that got built around it, and the culture all got into a virtuous lock, and it was just going great. Except for any of us, whether it's Microsoft, GE, or anyone in the room, ultimately, there's no such thing as a perpetual motion machine, at least not yet. And we should
do that together.
That's right. That's when we can sort of change all the rules.
Exactly.
But until then, you have to come up with a new concept and a new idea. That'll require new capability. That's when I think culture matters the most. At least that's what I've realized, which is long before it's conventional wisdom, how do you build a capability that gives you even the option value to go after new ideas? And so if I had to think about what every one of us, irrespective of industry, and in some sense, you could say the tech industry, that has always been the case. That's why these R&D budgets of tech companies, how we have to take big swings, is just hard. And guess what? It's going to be the case now for everybody. I sometimes read in the press saying, oh, here is how an industrial company should be run, here is how a digital company should be run, and I feel like, well, if the reality is everybody is a digital company,
exactly,
we all have to run things the same way, and it's that understanding the lock and when to break it, because unless and until you break it, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of it.
The wrong side. Let's finish with culture. You touched on that, and this is a huge month for you. Your book, Hit Refresh, is now on the New York Times bestseller. You and I are going through a lot of similar, situations, if you will. I can tell you from the number of people who have sent me your book that's part of the reason why it's on the New York Times bestseller list, for sure. It's really, it's piling up in my office. You need to read Satya's book, which I have. It's fantastic. You all should read that. So. But you talk a lot, about this evolving culture from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture. How did you come to feel that or see that? And did you come into the CEO job thinking, I need to do that? Or is it something that kind of became evident to you over time?
I mean, it's fascinating, John. Like you, I'm a consummate insider. I grew up at Microsoft for 25 years. And I went on a search for a metaphor for a learning organization, right? I mean, one of the things we always talked about culture. We wanted to be a learning organization. We would have all these attributes that we said we need to have in our behaviors. We would put it up in posters, but I myself would forget them. I mean, it's hard to remember what
We'll be quizzing the GE people later on those,
Right.
but
And so just a couple of years before becoming the CEO, I'd read this book by Carol Dweck called Mindset. And my wife had introduced me to it. And we read it mostly in the context of our children and their education. But there's this one simple metaphor that she brings out, which is if you have two people in school, one of them may even have a lot of innate capability, but is a know-it-all. And the other one has less innate capability, but is a learn-it-all. Ultimately, the learn-it-all is going to do better. And that applies to CEOs, that applies to all of us at Microsoft, and it applies to the company in a whole. So I grabbed onto that growth mindset as the metaphor to make culture a more explicit conversation. And quite frankly, in a very heavy engineering culture, it was unclear to me whether it'll grab on, right? I mean, whether people will think that this is new corporate dogma. And, but I must say, to my surprise, what has happened is that it doesn't feel like corporate dogma, because this is, you shouldn't do this for Microsoft, right? It's not like, oh, you come to Microsoft and Microsoft has said, you know, growth mindset is what we are all about. Growth mindset makes you a better parent, a better partner, a better colleague, a better leader. It's more about that calling on your core innate capability and invoking it. And so to me, that notion of taking personal responsibility is probably the best way to organically change culture. And you know, we're definitely not done. We'll never be done. In fact, sometimes at Microsoft, someone will come to me and say, Satya, we found the 5 people at Microsoft who don't have a growth mindset. And I say, well, you know what? That's not the point. The point is to be able to confront, like starting with me, my own fixed mindset. I'm far from perfect. Every day, can I be comfortable recognizing my own moments of fixed mindset? And more I talk about it, the more permission I give for all of us to make mistakes, but most importantly, learn from our mistakes.
any just final advice for everybody in the audience and watching around that kind of change, that kind of culture change in a digital environment, in traditional industrial businesses? Some perception it might be harder in that environment. What you just articulated was fantastic. Any other thoughts to leave the...
I mean, one of the great, you can call it an advantage or privilege I've had is to see companies across industries deal with this massive change. And I think you described it as this digital gap that exists. And what I've found is companies that are able to reconceptualize the core of the business, the metrics around that business, what are the leading indicators that are more important now for you to transform yourself and impact the outcomes? Because the lagging indicators we all know, they're revenue or profit. But what is interesting and most important is for you to understand and get comfortable in defining and tracking and monotonically improving these leading indicators of success.
Do you have one or two you could share, or?
I mean, engagement. Like take even the Predix platform, right? It's going to be fundamentally about, oh, well, what is the amount of data that's coming in? What's the processing of that data? And what are the insights that are coming out of it?
Yeah.
Right? Being able, like for example, one of the things people talk about it's all about data. Of course it's about data. Then they'll say it's all about AI. Of course it's about AI. But ultimately we know they're in service of some outcome.
What are they doing with it?
So the connection of your data, AI, and that outcome, but not as revenue or any other cost saving or profit, because that's going to come in at a high scale. But what's that first indicator that that loop is working? Being able to get that definition and breaking, I guess, your operational rhythms. It's not about measuring one industrial product line or one piece that you've done historically. And that's where I think success lies. And companies that have been able to sort of bring their operations together and reconceptualize them with these leading indicators of success are able to transform much faster.
Great. Well, listen, we couldn't be more proud of our partnership with Microsoft. It's a real privilege for me to have you here today. I will be watching and learning carefully from you as I have, and we look forward to inventing the future of the world together. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks a lot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CEO of GE Digital and Chief Digital Officer of GE, Bill Rue.
I'm really stoked to be here. We had about 3,700, 3,800 people sign up, almost 90% more attendees than last year, which is pretty exciting. But if you look, what really gets me excited about this conference, from when we started with our first conference 6 years ago, the 150, which was more, I'd say, media-oriented, this conference has become a conference for practitioners in becoming digital industrial. It represents all of the industries. It's a global conference. And if you start to think about who you are and what this is about, it's about sharing experiences as the leaders, the 13% who are on the journey today and are going to lead everybody else into this digital industrial future. That's what we're about. And when I think about this conference, this year's theme, last year's theme was really about the portfolio, the predicts-powered portfolio. This year, it's about customers and it's about outcomes. It's about what does it take to combine OT and IT together and become more digital. It's about driving outcomes and being able to compete. And I think these quotes from companies who are in the mining space and steel production space capture why we're doing this. And one of the things at this conference that you're going to see is a ton about customers. We started with customers, the first digital utility. We're going to, throughout, integrate customers into almost everything we talk about and really describe outcomes. And I'm really proud about what we've been able to achieve together over the last 20 months when we first released our predicts-powered portfolio. And the question is then, why are we doing this as a community? And the World Economic Forum last year put out a really powerful report on digital transformation, which talked about this $6.8 trillion opportunity over the next 10 years. That's a huge prize. And the winners are going to be the ones who, in fact, go after that and go through the digital transformation. I was particularly happy to see that they actually called out that of the 6.8 trillion, 700 billion is going to be APM driven. And as a leader in APM, we are really happy to see that that is being recognized as one of the key value drivers going forward, as well as service automation and the platform capabilities. So this is the prize everyone is chasing. The question is, what are we all learning about how to get there? And we're starting to see patterns appear. When I started working on this 6 years ago, inside GE, there was a question of why are we doing it? About 4 years ago, as we started exploring with our own customer base, the question was, why are you doing this? That was the only question we ever really got asked. About 2.5 years ago, that question turned to, how are you doing this? And I have to say, and I think for you who are in the audience, you're really saying, what am I going to do about it? And what we're seeing is these patterns appear, and I think you can explore how you do that at the conference. The first thing that we see people do is they are able to gain mastery of their assets. And that's really a starting point and if you don't start there, it's impossible really to make the move through these other phases. But what we see is you start with the mastery of your asset, you connect your assets, you connect your systems of assets, you bring that data in, and you start driving outcomes and productivity. But that's not enough. What we're seeing and hearing, and you'll see it in the report we put out, is that people are interested in their operations and how they gain more mastery of the operation, and brings people into this in a new way. It looks at your fleet. It starts to think about integrating your entire ecosystem and systems together. But what's really fascinating is that what we're hearing at the C-suite now is the ultimate prize is business transformation, new business models, business innovation. And so it's really master the asset, master the operations, and begin to move into business innovation. And you heard a lot of that from Gil this morning, and the NIPA story, he talked about every single one of these as being a digital utility. Now, when you think about it, we believe that underpinning this is a series of technologies that are necessary to make that shift. That is, to us, this Predix-powered portfolio. And for us, Predix starts with the common asset model, because if you have at the cornerstone mastery of your asset data, you can begin to drive these kinds of new outcomes. You can drive outcomes through asset performance management, where you start to get reliability and predictability and greater efficiency out of your machines. You can then start to think about how to drive that into your people and make them more productive. Allow them to, in fact, start to focus on the hard work and less of the mundane. Underlying that is a platform architecture that goes edge to cloud. The idea of being at the edge is so important in the industrial world, and that the ability to make that connection is really very unique and very powerful. So for us, it all starts with the asset model and then the ability to bring all of this together. One thing, when we talked about focus, and John talked about how we are focusing in terms of how we go to market and working with partners, you heard that partner ecosystem, I think, come across very clearly. And one thing we found is even within the platform ourselves, we're going to partner more than ever before. We're already doing that. You see that with the movement into utilizing the cloud architectures, Azure being released on the 30th of November. This, to us, is an important part of moving and focusing and creating an ecosystem. And when you look at this ecosystem, it's not one or two, it's a whole bunch. It's Microsoft Azure in the cloud. It's HP Enterprise at the edge. We actually think there'll be more processing on the edge than in the cloud over time, because of the real-time nature of the businesses we're in, because our fleets move around, because connectivity is not always as perfect as we would like everywhere in the world. And then finally, it's the announcement we made with Apple, where we know that mobility is important, and our ability to natively bring in iOS applications on top of Predix through our SDK is allowing us to create very quickly these mobile applications. So for us, you're going to continue to see partnering with leaders in our platforms and our applications to get us there faster, creating that ecosystem. And then we add value on top of that ecosystem. We leverage that compute. We leverage that machine learning stack that's being created. We're not going to get into those areas. We're going to utilize what others are doing. But what we're doing is adding unique data, domain expertise, and bringing it together into an industrial setting. So the ability to operate at the edge and connect your control systems is a domain expertise that's required. And by the way, I think this is what we offer you, is to be part of your ecosystem, to connect with that same capability. And you add your own domain expertise, you connect into ours, connecting into these powerful capabilities from these partners. When you think about the machine learning capability, then the question is, well, Bill, if you're just using their machine learning stack, what are you adding? And the reality is that these tools are great, but given the complexity of problems in the industrial world, they're not enough. And I'll give you just one quick example here, is in our oil and gas business, they are really fantastic at monitoring pipelines and looking for defects. They monitor about a million kilometers of pipeline, which is an incredible number to me. They have about 350 experts. It takes them about 2 years to train that expert to be able to act alone in doing this monitoring. And they've found about 100 million defects over 15 years. When you look at the amount of data and finding a defect, what's incredible is one defect is the equivalent of one blade of grass on 7 football fields. So you can see that these kind of problems, and you in the industrial space, you understand this, are more complex than just a general purpose machine learning. You have to use those tools to help them find those defects, but the reality is you've got to put a lot of expertise on top of them, and that's what we do, that's what we are doing. We're adding this idea of an ultrasonic pig AI solution on top of them. And by the way, one thing I've learned from our AI experts is people are not going away. We're going to make them better. We're going to make them more efficient. We're going to be able to do more work. But the fact is people are not going away. Look, I think kind of concluding with just a few things, this is really about outcomes at this conference. And you know, in the last 20 months, people are always saying, where are the real outcomes, Bill, you're generating? What are you really doing? And the fact is, we have a tremendous number of outcomes, and we're measuring those outcomes. So we're not selling technology. We're selling the ability for customers to achieve an outcome in unplanned outages, and productivity savings, and reduction in service failures. And these are just a few numbers that I'm showing here. But I'm telling you, there are hundreds of these stories that exist here today. And we really measure ourselves on the outcomes we're generating. The last thing is we are really proud of the success we've had over the last 20 months. When you look at between the acquisitions we've made and the sales and working with our customer base, today there are about 1,000 Predix-powered customers on our portfolio, and we're very proud of that. When you start to look at the power business, who's done a tremendous amount in this area, about 10% of the world's power generation is now running through a Predix-powered application. We have about 300,000 technicians globally who are on ServiceMax, 2,200 production sites who are using our APM solution, about 120 million assets connected in ServiceMax that people are using in their jobs on a daily basis. We are nearly 1,000 partners, about 100% year-over-year growth in Predix-powered orders, and we're operating in 85 countries. We are really feel after 20 months we're starting to hit our stride, very happy with the progress we made. But I will just say the most important thing is those outcomes I mentioned. That's what we measure ourselves on. You're going to see that at the conference. As I started, I'm really stoked to have you here. And now I'd like to bring Russell Stokes to the stage to talk about the electricity value chain. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference.
Good morning. Really excited to be here with everybody today. It was a year ago on the stage at Minds and Machines that Beth Comstock came out and talked about this idea of emergence, this concept that the world as you know it today, you know will change, but you honestly don't know what the future is going to look like. I can't think of something that is more appropriate for the industry in which I work each and every day. And it's all around something that we tend to take for granted. I'm sure each and every one of you woke up this morning and flipped on a light switch in your room, unless you're part vampire, and took for granted how that power actually came to you to be able to use to go about your everyday life. And it's all around something so small that a transformation so big is happening. So what is it? It's about this. This is an electron. It is fundamental to everything we know. For over 100 years, this powerful particle followed a simple path from generation, mainly through fossil fuels and some hydroelectric power plants, to distribution systems, which were connected to businesses and homes. The electrons traveled in one direction. Later, transmission lines carried electrons across greater distances, flowing into distribution systems for thousands and then millions of customers. But things aren't quite so simple anymore. The path of an electron has steadily become more complicated. Generation facilities have become larger, nuclear power plants emerged. The portfolio of options has grown, and even small utilities now rely on many, many sources of generation that are increasingly geographically dispersed. Not to mention the explosive growth in renewable generation, which is occurring at both utility scale and through consumers. It is on track to become one of the largest sources of new power generation. Think about that. As generation completely changes, so does the path of our electron. What was once very simple, a linear path, now looks more like the internet. Nodes that function almost independently, fewer single points of failure, and connectedness across networks. And as consumers seek to assert greater control, we are witnessing the rise of the prosumer, supplying their excess power back into the grid. So what does this all mean? Well, up to now, optimization has always really been at the hardware asset level. But what about the grid? The grid wasn't designed to manage today's complexities. Edison's grid grew organically, piece by piece, reaching more people, more homes, more lives. Now we are asking it to do so much more, to move electrons further and more reliably and more affordably, and with greater fuel types. And if that wasn't enough, increasingly we won't just generate and move electrons, we will seek to store electrons. That is why the industry is transforming itself to deliver outcomes we wouldn't even have imagined a decade ago. As we move forward, we'll continue to see declining PV prices and new technologies that will enable greater consumption of electrons from the sun. And we'll see more use of wind turbines, with days where we can increasingly predict our ability to leverage those resources for maximum efficiency. Both of these sources will increasingly be enabled as we will see more affordable storage in form of batteries and other potential energy storage systems. But those batteries can also improve existing gas fleets. That's why we're attaching batteries to aeroderivative turbines, reducing spinning reserves, reducing emissions, and improving water consumption. Or take pumped hydro, another engineering marvel. It generates as much power as a nuclear power plant, doubling as a giant natural battery, able to store excess energy from solar and wind power. But revolutionary hardware deserves revolutionary software. Software that recognizes the potential of an entire connected power system, where assets are optimized through APM and dispatched on next generation energy management systems. This software ensures people, families, and homes have the energy they need when they need it. We'll optimize not just for the use of a single asset, but we'll have digital twins, as you've heard, that allow us to simulate the entire system. Traditional physics-based systems will be augmented by machine-based learning systems and artificial intelligence, as traditional systems won't be sophisticated enough to manage this unprecedented level of complexity. Breakthrough innovations in power generation will ensure we continue to push the boundary of thermodynamics, driving assets harder to record-breaking levels of efficiency through software and hardware upgrades that can refresh entire legacy fleets. At GE, we are proud to be leading the digital transformation across the energy industry with our customers across the globe. Building on the most efficient and dispatchable generation systems optimized through market-leading software. The hero of the story going forward will be this convergence of the digitized hardware combined with software capability. The electron will gain new life and will navigate new pathways. This marriage of digital and industrial will revolutionize the way we power our lives and help usher in an era of electrification in an increasingly autonomous and more productive world. Complete digitization of assets and entire networks. For customers, this means unprecedented insight into potential issues before they happen, and new ways of creating and ensuring the value that they want for their customers. I can only imagine what it must have been like over 100 years ago to blow out those candles and flip on a light switch. And I hope to be able to see that repeated for the 1 billion people who still don't have access to power. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the future. One where digital transformation is paving the way, moving that electron through the magic of GE hardware and software powered by Predix. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice President of Industrial Applications at GE Digital, Eddie Amos.
Hello and welcome to Minds and Machines 2017 again. My name is Eddie Amos. I'm the Vice President of Industrial Applications for GE Digital, and we're pleased that you could join us here in San Francisco today. You know, GE Digital's mission is to create software that helps operate, manage, and optimize the life cycle of your assets. It's all about outcomes. Those outcomes of how do we decrease your downtime while increasing your productivity. Now, this is simple to say, but I can tell you it's very, very hard to do. Unlike the consumer internet, we're dealing with millions of assets. These millions of assets have billions of sensors attached to them. This is an order of magnitude more than most folks have to deal with on a daily basis. It takes an industrial platform to actually come back and manage this type of data. And it takes purpose-built applications to help you solve these problems. That's what we've been working on at GE. We have powerful applications like asset performance management, and then field service powered by ServiceMax on Predix. So these are incredible applications that are available to you today. Now, these applications are built on our expertise. GE is a very unique company. We design, build, manufacture, service, and operate equipment. So because of this expertise, we can give you much more insights, much deeper insights than, say, historic data or historian. We can come back and give you unique insights based on failure codes. We can combine that with physics data models using our analytics. And because we operate and we service this equipment, we can also create unique machine learning algorithms and AI capabilities that help you perform better. Now, our industrial expertise is infused in every application we build. Our applications come from a common layer on Predix. This gives us a unique asset model. It helps us with digital twins. It helps us with machine learning algorithms and building incredible artificial intelligence. The GE Integrated Industrial Application Portfolio allows you to connect and then optimize across your entire value chain. Now, better together means a complementary set of applications, industrial applications, if you will. Now, the GE Industrial Application Portfolio delivers on the value at all stages of your assets, all your systems, regardless of the vertical you may work in today. And our applications work well together because we realize that our customers face challenges across their entire plant, their fleet, their operations. It's more than just a single asset. For example, some customers may choose to focus on improving the operational performance of, say, a single type of an asset. Maybe a turbine, maybe it's a cooling fan, maybe it's a pump. Now, our APM product today can deliver insights almost immediately using things like Smart Signal or our Historian, and it'll allow you to make adjustments to improve performance even if it's not a GE asset. And solutions like our new Operation Performance Management solution that John and Bill talked about earlier increases revenue and margins by optimizing performance of your plants, your sites, and your entire portfolio. Our industrial applications also extend to field services through ServiceMax. APM can also extend to other parts of your business, allowing operators to optimize across the entire balance of your plant. A lot of folks like to stop at the single asset, but we know it's the sum of the parts that makes your operations work. Using tools like APM and OPM, we can help you benchmark and optimize all types and vintages of assets, regardless of the manufacturer that you may be working with today. And through ServiceMax, Dave Yarnell will be on stage next to talk to you about ServiceMax, technicians who are servicing these assets can better manage their workflows, improve their workforce productivity. And as the operations and maintenance data is collected, when we go out and actually service this equipment, we're taking all of this insight, all of this data, and we're putting it right back into the designs of what we build. Why? It helps us build better products for you. Now, when you put all of this together, the GE suite of industrial applications like APM and ServiceMax is truly transforming operations from design to decommission. Any asset, any system. Now, I get asked quite often, what is the difference between what you do and, say, an ERP system? That's worth spending a few minutes on. Your traditional ERP system was built off of what? It's a financial model. A CRM system is built on what? A customer data model. We are maniacally focused on assets. So we have created the world's best asset model on Predix. Now, we interact with these other systems through something called the digital thread. But when it comes to understanding that complete life cycle of an asset, no one does it better than GE. Now, there are numerous out-of-the-box options that we have for you today with our APM solution and ServiceMax. But the extensibility of our applications is what's really key. We've been spending a lot of time thinking about our partners and our customers and how we extend these applications out. Patrick Franklin's going to be on stage in just a few minutes to show you some of the incredible new developments we have with no-code type of options that's going to help you extend these applications to meet the true needs of your business. Our partner network can help you configure without incurring mountains of technical debt, often generated when you build scenarios like when you modify an ERP system. So what might start as a simple, entry point customers can turn into a very, very easy or robust digital transformation. Now, a great example of this in action is one of our customers, Gerdau. Now, Gerdau is the largest producer of steel in the Americas. If you don't know about Gerdau, they have 11 plants in Brazil. They spend over $305 million annually on maintenance. Now, when one of their critical assets fail, that's the equivalent of $12,000 per hour per asset. That's a lot of money. So their goal is they need to drive out their maintenance costs for about 30%. That's about $61 million annually. Now, they had existing vibration monitoring tools, but they didn't have the analytic capabilities to be more predictive. We worked with them on implementing GE Smart Signal, also the Historian in our field service components. Fast return on investments were seen almost immediately. Tell you what, to help us learn more about this story and how this journey may work for you, I'd like to welcome someone from Gerdau on stage with us right now. So, Castesto Franca, could you come on out today? Good to see you.
Thank you.
So, Gustavo, you have a very interesting job at Gerdau. Please have a seat. When you sit back and you think about what you're doing, you have unique insights into what's going on, anything and everything, digital. And you're being one of the largest, steel providers in the industry. I'm sure you've seen it all. So, what are some of the greatest opportunities and needs you see at Gerdau today?
Well, thank you. Good morning. In my opinion, the good opportunity is integrated supply chain because we can connect everything, people, assets, mobile equipment, machine, together connected systems. So we can get much more efficient productivity, short lead time in production for our customer, enhancing customer experience.
So are some of the solutions that you've been using it's actually helped you to improve or enhance the user experience and also help you with revenue?
Yes, we create some platform for our customers where the customers can create your order, track your order, communicate with Gerdau. That's easy of doing business with Gerdau.
Yeah. So Gustavo, we heard this morning, John was on stage talking about the number of companies that were ready for, an industrial transformation or a digital transformation. It just feels like the steel industry is one of those industries that is just right for this type of movement. What do you see in terms of the next steps or the digital evolution that's happening in the steel industry?
Yes, interesting. We are in a digital transformation journey. Gerdau is living a digital transformation journey. And we started by culture. So we needed to adjust skill set, people, mindset, and behaviors that support our transformation, digital transformation. And we create some attributes that are developing, like openness, simplicity, empowerment with accountability during our journey.
So you created like two platforms, things around smart chains and smart bots. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, smart chain and smart bots is a type of platform that we created to support our customers during this journey, digital journey. The idea is create a better customer experience when the customer is doing business with Gerdau.
What I love about Gustavo, he's a geek like a lot of us in the room today, and I understand you're using drone technology. How are you using that at Gerdau today?
Yes, drone is very interesting as well. We are using drones in scrap yards, in scrap inventory. So it's possible to reduce the time in this activity from 3-4 days to few hours. So it's amazing. It's a huge productivity.
Backstage yesterday, we were talking about the latest set of rounds of innovation that we're working on as the two companies. Could you share your insights of what you've learned over the past 5 days?
Yes, we are learning a lot with the digital because we are learning how we can transform our industry into a digital industry regarding all aspects that we mentioned before, people, mindset, culture, skills, so it's very good.
So Gustavo, one last question for you today. Our organizations have been working together for about a year now. Just give you, example of how we work together with our customers. How has this engagement between GE and Gerdau actually helped you in terms of the future of your digital initiatives?
Yes, GE is helping us in create a digital transformation journey, the next level of this digital transformation level. Knowledge transfers for us during the journey and how we can get more productivity and revenue in order to achieve our outcomes.
Fantastic. So thank you for your insights. As John said this morning, it's always customer first. We appreciate it, and thank you for your partnership.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. So as we sit back and think about Minds and Machines this year, I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. GE's digital's been on a journey for the last couple of years. I kind of think of Minds and Machines 2017 this year as the state of Missouri. It's the show me state. I'd love you to go out to the tech hall, see the great innovations we've been working on. The great thing about what you will see in the tech hall, this is shipping technology. This is things that you can use today. My name is Eddie Amos, and on behalf of over 300,000 GE employees worldwide, thank you, and we remain maniacally focused on your success every day. Have a great time at Minds and Machines.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CEO at ServiceMax from GE Digital, Dave Yarnold.
Good morning. I'm Dave Yarnold, and I lead the ServiceMax business here at GE Digital. At ServiceMax, we do field service software, and we are singularly focused on helping you transform your service operations. To really understand the magnitude of this opportunity, you need to take a look at the size of the digital or the industrial economy. We did a study recently with McKinsey just to size up that opportunity. If you add up all the companies in the 10 biggest industrial verticals, you come up with a group of companies that total $23 trillion in revenues annually. The cost of their service operations is a total of $1.4 trillion annually. And there are more than 20 million field technicians globally, which are roughly equal to the same number of field salespeople in the global economy. So it's a massive opportunity. The conclusion of that study was that the use of service technology in this space through service transformation could result in a $500 billion bottom line impact. Half of that through additional productivity, half of it through additional revenue streams. So this is the opportunity that we at ServiceMax have been uniquely focused on. Today, the ServiceMax platform is the most complete platform for field service innovation in the world today. It's cloud-based from day one. It's mobile-enabled. It's the ability to manage all aspects of your service business. Obviously, your installed assets, you hear a great focus on that today, but also the service teams, their locations, their schedules, their capabilities, your contractual relationships with your customers and the entitlements related to that, all of your parts inventories, and all the workflows necessary to run a service business. Today, we support more than 300,000 technicians who maintain more than 124 million assets out in the field. Right? Also, for the last couple of years, we've had this concept of connected field service, where we're actually leveraging machine data to help us be more proactive in our service execution. So that's the ServiceMax platform. We are really thrilled to take this concept of connected field service and combine it with the power of Predix, APM, the whole power of the industrial IoT, and bring ServiceMax together in an integrated fashion. This quarter, we're releasing this version of our connected field service product together with Predix-based APM. With this solution, we're going to give you the ability, obviously, to monitor the assets, to leverage the machine data, to dial up or down your APM solution, to drive smart maintenance strategies, and through that, then take on service execution as a result of those strategies. So our support of IIoT and APM combined with ServiceMax really helps you get the most productivity out of your assets. I would say that there's no other company on the planet that can offer this combination of capabilities. You've got the #1 field service platform, as noted by Gartner in their most recent Magic Quadrant, and for the last 2 years running, and the know-how of building and servicing assets for decades that comes with being GE. Now, what I would say is you've heard a focus on outcomes, and we're very focused on customer outcomes at ServiceMax. And I love hearing Jim Fowler, GE's CIO, talk about the more than $100 million productivity enhancement he's gotten through his implementation of ServiceMax internally at GE. But across the board, our average customers see an 18% increase in productivity. For those who are concerned about revenues, they see a 13% increase in their revenues, right? And an average of 11-point increase in their NPS score. And on the safety side, we see a 19% reduction in compliance incidents. So clearly, this is having a tremendous impact on business outcomes. But I would say, don't take my word for it. Right now, what I'd like to do is bring up one of our customers, and I'd like to invite Don Davis, Head of Global Service from Becton Dickinson, to come on stage. Don?
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Don. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
So BD is a well-respected $12 billion manufacturer of medical and healthcare technology. So thrilled to have you here as a long-term customer. I guess what I'd like to do, there's a lot of discussion about outcomes this morning. Right. So let's just get to the bottom line. I'd love to hear from you. What kind of outcomes are you achieving in your service business through the use of ServiceMax specifically?
So the first part for us, right, is that we have 8 different instances of SAP. So when you look at what ServiceMax brought to BD, overall it was standardization, right? I mean, we couldn't get basic metrics. To get just a basic PM schedule took, hours and weeks to try and compile. To just get basic parts performance, a lot of the data just wasn't available. And so as you start to look at what we've been able to do with the platform overall, we've really been able to develop 14 different KPIs that show the total shape of our service business. And so that's really what ServiceMax has brought overall for us. So
Bottom line impact, right? We're talking specific outcomes.
Very easy. So in the last year, I mean, we've seen, so I would say, like, the first year after implementation, we could start to see some glints of things moving. But whenever you come back and we took a look at, after year 2, we started to take a look at the overall cost to serve of all of our products, and it's gone down by $13 million. That's a 30% reduction in 1 year. So whenever you talk about an 18% productivity gain in a lot of your companies, with us, we've seen a substantial benefit overall.
So roughly 30%.
30%.
That's fantastic. Music to my ears. So how's it changed your business overall?
So, I mean, primarily from a field service standpoint, it's delivered the capability of, understanding exactly what it is that they need to do on a day-to-day basis. From a back office capability, I mean, it's given us all sorts of information to really trying to understand the shape of what it is that we need to do to improve things for our customers. Right. I mean, even though you talked about BD being a medical device company, a lot of things that we test, so we test for things like, if you have an infection in the hospital, things like MRSA, which could, essentially end our lives, right? Those are the types of things that we're testing for. And so not having the availability of your machine is really important, whether it's a microbiology machine, a molecular machine. We also are into lab automation now, so we have high throughput microbiology machines as well. And so when we start to think about key failures, that's the data that's coming out of ServiceMax has helped us there. The great thing for me is that as we've kind of progressed throughout the year now, we've seen more and more departments come back and say, hey, can I have access to the data? So just so happened that I had quite a few extra licenses that we were hanging on to, planned for field growth. And we actually, gave our quality partners a few licenses to help us, look at the data. I mean, there's so much information that's coming back. Almost need a team that's continually analyzing things for you.
So tell us a little bit about the data. You mentioned some of the KPIs that you've developed, but some examples of some of the data that you're gathering and some of the insights that you've gotten as a result of that.
Yeah, so we look at the total time to resolve would be one great example, right? So from the moment that a customer calls in until their problem is fixed, we're actually looking at the time of that. We're also tracking things like, when are things happening that are anomalies, either positive or negative. And so, we've actually come down to the point to say, if we see 3% increase in one direction or the other, I mean, we've got to come back and look at certain metrics and certain parameters, because that could indicate that a customer's having a difficult time. On the supplier side, so whenever you look at parts suppliers and things like that, we've had individuals that have been producing parts for BD for quite a while. And now I know from our supplier side, we've met with a few of them recently, and one of the suppliers particularly said, look, I've been producing this part for 5 years. You guys have never told us that there was an issue, and now all of a sudden here you're showing up and telling us that there's a problem. What's different? And it is ServiceMax, right?
So
it's
to
the fact that
impact
we've got
cost
the
or
data.
quality?
Both.
Okay, that's great. a lot of discussion about the edge and IIoT data. What's your sense of how BD is going to leverage that kind of data in service operations?
Yeah, so, I mean, so first of all, for us, from a digital transformation standpoint, you know, BD, we actually just this year, a couple months ago, established a core team around connectivity, right? So the whole idea of having more and more of this Internet of Things information, standardizing the log files that are coming out of the instruments, really being able to lever that into outcomes. Yep. You know, is something that we want to plan for, and so we've built a core team that will go along with our R&D partners as they look at the next generation product. How do I standardize that connectivity, right? How do I standardize the data that we need to get back from the instruments? In addition to that, though, for sure, augmented reality is a big part of it. We're running clinical trials even today, where in Africa, when a field engineer needs troubleshooting help, we're doing augmented reality sessions a lot of times with them in terms of how to get the actual outcomes that they need. As I see the progression, though, you kind of see this idea that all of the data at some point needs to come together, and one could feed the other. And that will be absolutely tremendous from a service standpoint, because as I think about our field engineers, a field engineer a long time ago would just put on their tool belt at the beginning of the day and work on instruments. The tool belt for the next generation really is going to be all of this data coming to them in some way. And as I heard John speak earlier, or even Bill start to talk about the way that we're getting information today, it needs to be out in front of us and easy to access. Yep. And making it something that is easy to access will ensure that I can get the best capabilities out of all of my field workforce. Because I know that one of the things that we most want at BD is world-class service everywhere.
Fantastic. One last question. If you had one piece of advice to the folks who are sitting out in this audience contemplating a new service transformation project, what would that one piece of advice be?
Get started as soon as you can. But I mean, I guess from my standpoint, whenever I think about all of the time that I spent or wasted trying to get the ERP solution that we had, whether it was Oracle whenever I was with GE for 17 years, or whether it was with SAP, which is what BD had, it's a tremendous amount of effort that you'd have to put into that solution to be able to get out what we can get out relatively easily, I would say, with ServiceMax. From an IoT standpoint, augmented reality standpoint, we all have to get started as soon as we can. The more that we look at what everybody in this room is doing, the better we will all be together. So as I think about what the energy folks have done and some of the other folks that are a little bit further ahead of where we currently are, there's true opportunity.
Terrific. Thanks so much for being here, Don. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
Great insights.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Corporate Vice President of Predix, Patrick Franklin.
At our annual conference on the Industrial Internet of Things, I'm going to wrap up the morning session and talk about Predix. I have the unique opportunity and privilege to lead the Predix development team. Like our previous speakers, Eddie and Dave, I am also newish to GE. I joined at this time last year. I came to GE because of the challenges of the industrial internet. I was really amazed that these problems hadn't been solved. I may have a froofy official title, froofy is a word, Google it, but I'm a software engineer at heart. And as an engineer, I love working on hard, complicated problems because solving complicated problems improves the world. And the current industrial world has some of the most complex challenges that I could ever hope for. And I'm super excited about this. And I'm an engineer, so this is what super excited looks like. Right? Also is happy, sad, angry, frustrated, etc. So, where is the industry today? As you've heard from John, Bill, and Satya, our industry faces some daunting productivity opportunities. Bottom line, industries are looking to get more. More performance, more efficiency, more real-time decision-making, more predictive analytics across the board. They're looking for the next level in performance, what I'm calling software-defined performance. But we're hitting a wall with our current environments. In fact, industrial productivity has been flat for the last 5 years. There's been a lack of leadership. The market has been flooded with lots of people offering lots of solutions, promising that they can connect lots of anything, trying to lead. Then we have lots of customers and partners seeking guidance, seeking help on their digital journey, but no leader. As we've discussed, it is hard, and it's more complicated because of a highly heterogeneous landscape. How do you integrate different solutions, connect different assets, make sense of a huge amount of data, which presents a combinatorial challenge, and how do you do this in a scalable way? These are industrial-sized issues, and you need an industrial-sized solution. So what is the answer? The answer is something, as Eddie referred to, that's purpose-built for the industry. Something that can tie all these things together. And if you think that 3 billion social media users is a lot to tie together, that pales when compared to 50 billion connected machines. You need a platform that's built for the industry. A platform that monitors, connects, and allows you to predict and make decisions. A platform that can monitor and understand the assets and connect and interrelate those assets and data. You need a platform with ingestion abilities and the computational power to handle large amounts of different and disparate data. And you need a platform that understands the data flow. You need a platform that can use predictive analytics and machine learning to make things more efficient. You need a platform that can process data at the edge and in the cloud and drive it back down to the controls. Drive learning back to the edge. As our CTO, Vic Abate, likes to say, from controls to cloud and back. You need an industrial strength solution. But what's really important is you simply cannot solve a problem you don't understand. You've got to understand the problem to solve it. At GE, we understand the problem. We are an industrial manufacturer. We've been working on this problem for over 5 years. We speak the language, from oil rigs to jet engines to healthcare equipment to wind to gas turbines. We are particularly suited to solving the performance problem with a platform that delivers software-defined performance that I referenced earlier. As Bill talked about, and everybody's talked about, Predix is an edge-to-cloud platform and back. What does that look like? How does that work? We start at the edge with we connect assets. As you collect data across these devices, you learn about them. You learn across the entire data and solution set. We enable computing at the edge. We can run full analytics at the edge. And most important, make decisions where they need to be made. We've created Edge 2.0, which is scalable across different hardware tiers. And this ties to our cloud offering. We can take data from our connected assets, filter it, run analytics on it, and push it in the cloud, removing the redundant data. Then my joke for the data sciences room, not that there's any such thing as redundant data, right? We can run advanced machine learning in the cloud. We can refine our algorithms and better understand the device. With our industrial applications, we have visibility and insight across assets, operations, and the business, and we do this all securely end-to-end. Unpacking this a bit more, we can understand how Predix addresses the complexity and magnitude of the opportunity. It's an asset-centric platform. An asset-centric platform that can pull data from any environment or system and interoperate between sensors, assets, various compute nodes, and the cloud. Because it all starts with the asset, the machine or the device, which we understand really, really well. The asset model, combined with physics and data, when brought together, creates a digital twin, a virtual representation which allows us to simulate how the machine works and predict failures and predict the impact. And with ServiceMax, we're able to deploy the appropriate resources when they are needed, the way that works best for you. Ultimately, this drives business decisions from the data that comes off the asset, going from assets to answers. But remember, it's not just about the failures. Not only does this help predict the failures, it helps drive efficiency. What we're really doing is we're separating the workflow from computation. We're creating a simulation environment, a what-if engine, to help you model and understand the impact of changes. The changes you want to make or changes that might happen to the devices or to the machines. Today, you'll hear from Qantas and how they use Predix to analyze more than 10 billion data points, allowing them to identify millions in annual fuel savings and reduce carbon emissions. Machine learning and predictive analytics allows us to improve existing machines and equipment in a continuous manner. And what's important there is in a continuous manner. All this is possible because Predix is an edge-to-cloud platform. It connects from the edge to the cloud and back, and allows you to run the right apps at the right place at the right time. In other words, it's a distributed application platform. I, along with many others, I posted this on LinkedIn, believe that industrial IoT will be one at the edge, where the assets are. Bill talked about that in his presentation. With our asset experience and our machine data expertise, we understood the importance of the edge early on. We understand data ingestion. We understand storage, analytics, machine learning, and computing. We understand that some things, like the data, can't always make a round trip. It's too latent. So, if we need to process something at the edge, we can do that. We can further refine the processing in the cloud with our private on-premise deployments. We are cloud agnostic, and we can partner with our tremendous partners in Microsoft and Amazon to run in the cloud. Because today it's all about flexibility. But no matter the environment, the platform offers a rich set of microservices to run the applications, an asset-centric approach with edge-to-cloud versatility, which is foundational to one critical concept. A platform is only as good as the applications you build on it. It's all about the applications. We are application-led as a platform. Industrial applications require an industrial-strength platform that gives you which gives you access to applications you need, such as APM and ServiceMax, integrates the applications you already have, such as your ERP and MES systems, and allows you to build the applications and extensions that you want. The platform connects it all together, so you can, again, run the right applications at the right place at the right time. We've created something to make it easier to go from data to outcomes, from the assets to answers, building applications and extensions in minutes, something that previously required weeks of data science and a highly skilled engineering staff that may or may not have the domain expertise you need to produce the solutions that you want. We're introducing Predix Studio, which allows for a no-code or low-code rapid application development environment with machine learning algorithms built right into it. With that, I'd like to welcome Michael Varney to the stage to show us how Predix Studio makes this all possible. Mike? All right, what do you got?
Good morning, Patrick. So, I'm all about making the complex easier, and I'm going to show you how to use Studio to extend our APM application, accelerate your app development, gain further insights from your data, and actually, probably most importantly, empower those subject matter experts at your company on the floor every day that know those problems and know how to solve them. So you can see I've logged into APM. The scenario I'm going to run through is a company has been optimizing
a critical asset using APM, in this case, a pump. That optimization has opened the door for our operations team, the people that actually run the pump, to recognize there's further non-productive time, that time when the pump isn't running due to water, chemicals, sand that actually pumps. And so they've got, that data is in an ERP system. They've been looking at it with spreadsheets. They created an analytic, I like to call it math, and they've been looking at this. They want to create an extension and leverage APM. So right through APM, I can access Predict Studio, that low-code toolkit for app development. I'm going to start by going to the data management workbench and integrate that ERP data with our APM data. Because it's part of APM, I immediately have access to my APM data. For this case, I know I need some APM asset data. I need some APM time series data. And let's go ahead and grab GIS data where those assets are. Now, the operations team gave me the extract of that ERP data. I've got it right here on my laptop, so I'm going to bring that into Studio. And I'll add it to this integration project. Now, here's where some of the magic happens. Through a simple workflow right down the left-hand side, we're going to let the machine actually integrate all this data for me. Right? It goes orange when I push the button to tell me it's running a bunch of machine learning algorithms. It goes green when it's ready for me to take the next step. And you can see it's starting to look at how this data is related to each other. It's learning the connections between the data sets, those disparate data sets. And the outcome is really how that data is all fit together. The machine did it. I've got my APM asset data. I've got my APM time series data. And up here, I've got the ERP data, and you can see it has figured out itself how that's all related. So I'm going to publish everything the machine has learned about this data to an existing model. That allows me to now actually ingest that data so I can start to compose my application using it. So again, we'll point to that model we just put all those learnings into. And now we've got to map that data to the model from all those source systems. Well, again, let's let the machine do that. While I let the machine do that, I got to create storage for this data. So again, in Predict Studio, we provide you a mechanism to do that.
And where's that storage being created?
That's in Predicts, of course. And so I just create storage. So now I'm ready to ingest this data. And remember that analytic the operations team gave? We uploaded that into Predict Studio so we can use it. It's right here, so I'll select that. So when I run the adapter to actually ingest all this data, it's going to run those analytics automatically for me.
Awesome.
And so just so you know the output here, I mean, the output really is, I hate to say it, code.
I like code.
I know you do. And here's the code that I just created. Now, I didn't create that. The machine wrote that for me, and it's executing it now for me.
Very good.
So now that we're done with the data integration where the machine has figured out how that all fits together, let's go ahead and compose our application. Now, I brought in a geographical map from APM, so let's go ahead and bring that geographical data into that. You can see it's already showing me the APM, some of the APM data, but let's add some indicators that bring in that ERP data and start to give me the insights into this non-production time. So again, I'll just come through a big library of indicators, and we'll add those to this workbench. And you can see, as soon as I insert them, it pops up on the left-hand side. It's already starting to show you the results of those analytics and that data. That's the insights that we're already starting to get. I'm just going to add 3 of these real quickly. I still haven't figured out how to use a mouse pad when your hands are shaking. Sorry.
You're doing great.
There we go. So let's just reorganize this a little bit.
Okay.
And we'll update. And that, Patrick, is how.
So this is showing me that we have $16,825 being lost in NPT.
That's what it's showing you right now, just as I compose the app. right there. And so this is done when I'm done composing, so I've started to get those insights.
Cool. So what do you do with it now?
That's a great question. So I obviously, if I'm gaining that type of value right now, I obviously want to get that into my production system, put it in the hands of those operations teams. So we'll run it through an automated testing sequence. We like to call it a software development lifecycle.
Right.
That's part of Predict Studio, and when I'm done with that, and I know it's ready to go to production, push a button and I'll deploy it to APM. It actually looks like this. I can go back to my APM here.
Well, that's cool, because I've asked you that question because we rehearsed this thing like 25 times.
And you get the extensions, except I got to log in again. And you're back to where that application is. Sorry. I got it logged out.
Live data.
It'll show back up right in APM, that whole application. And that's how you're going to accelerate your app development, extend it something like APM, and gain those additional insights. And most importantly, empower those subject matter experts that really do know what problems you have.
Goes.
There it is.
We got to show it. Hopefully it comes up on the screen here. All right. It's not up on their screen.
Yep.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Patrick.
Using Predict Studio, this is how one of the ways we're going to make it easier, a whole lot easier for our customers to get a whole lot more performance. Software-defined performance. If you want to see more, the Tech Hall is full of great demos that you can put your hands on. Thank you very, very much. Have a great morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please take a short 10-minute break, stretch your legs, and return to your seats at 11:10 a.m. Thank you.
Molly, can you please take out the trash?
I reprogrammed the robots to do the inspection. It's running much faster now. See?
It's amazing, Molly.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Baker Hughes, a GE company, Jennifer Hartsock.
Good morning and welcome back from that reasonably quick break. So in the industrial world, we recognize that we have witnessed innovation and disruption for quite some time. Think of our product journeys, the transition from steam power to electric power. And in a world a little bit closer to my heart, I'd like you to think about information technology and all the things that it's made possible for the last few decades. From our very first systems that automated financial reporting and calculations to where we are today is really remarkable. So we had to think about how that's going to influence us in our digital industrial journey. Every one of us has experiences in the materials, methods, or system changes over the last hundreds of years, potentially, depending on your company. And we all can think of examples of companies that perhaps haven't innovated or disrupted in a way to stay current in their industries. And ultimately, their results are not something that we're aspiring to. GE, we've spent the last more than 125 years shaping innovation and technology in the industrial world. Each of your companies has a story of disruption and transformation that's led for you to be here today. So ultimately, what we've learned from this is we will either transform or we'll get left behind. So digital transformation is changing how we run our businesses. We have examples of digital transformation that mostly come from non-industrial sectors, and it would be easy to assume that those apply directly into our lives. But what we know is that in the industrial world, our journey, it looks different. And we need to have a plan on how we approach those differences. In our world, we're surrounded by assets. And this digital transformation journey has to impact every facet of our business, starting with those assets. Those assets are incredibly complicated. Many of them are interconnected. And being able to extract data off of them is an important step in our journey. In some places, those assets have been instrumented and sensor-enabled for quite some time. In others, simply getting data off of them and connecting them is a significant challenge. What we've learned is that when we can extract the data and we can perform those analytics, as you've heard earlier, that's only the first step in the journey. It really requires us to have a deep domain understanding of those assets, the physics behind those assets, and the industry knowledge that we have to take those analytics and create meaningful insights to drive action and ultimately productivity. In addition, our assets have the opportunity to work in incredibly diverse environments, supporting mission-critical functions for all of our operations. In many cases, those environments could be miles offshore, like a drilling rig, or miles above the earth on an aircraft. They work in harsh environments and oftentimes have either limited or inconsistent data connectivity. Again, digital transformation, we understand the stories where financial or transactional processes are optimized. In our digital industrial world, we recognize that part of our opportunity is to impact and have a direct impact on the core capabilities and operations of our businesses, which that includes our equipment and our controls. At the end of the day, this is all leading to shifts in our business models. Our markets, our customers, they expect us to come to the table with different capabilities that we have in the past. Our product and service offerings need to be combined with digital capabilities to differentiate how to make decisions and drive improved outcomes in their markets. So you've heard from this morning, we are living this journey at GE. Several examples were provided on how we're thinking differently about our assets, our environments, our operations, and ultimately our business models. But what's really important is that each of you have the opportunity to internalize and think about your personal digital journey, that you have a plan on how you're going to take this back and apply it to your businesses. So in order to facilitate and help with that, we're going to have 3 customers come up from different industries to share their stories of digital transformation. They represent energy, aviation, and oil and gas. This is a new era. And it is a journey. Each of those customers are at a different place in their journey, and they have different paths forward. So as you have the opportunity to listen to them over the next hour or so, we'd like you to think about and filter the information you're getting from them, as well as what you participate in for the next 2 days, as a way to take back a specific and thoughtful plan on how to drive productivity and outcomes in your business. So I'd like you to take a moment, sit back, get comfortable, and I'll come back up here in about an hour to recap. So we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Director of Corporate Innovation at Exelon, Brian Hoff.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully you're comfortable, you're not sleeping. I heard the comfort thing and it had me a little bit nervous, so I'll try to keep this a little exciting too. First, Brian Hoff, as you heard in the title. I've been with Exelon 23 years, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to share some of our digital transformation journey that we're going through inside Exelon. And those, for a few of you who don't know who we are a very large energy company that we deliver safe, affordable, reliable energy to over 10 million customers. The one thing that we definitely know is that we can't rest on what we did yesterday to be successful tomorrow. We're continuously evolving to provide better products and services to our customers and our communities in which we serve. With the Exelon platform, we've got this ability and this responsibility that we are to try to look always for a better way to do our work. We're seeing that digital is transforming the way that we work across all aspects of the value chain. One of the other things I'm really proud of is our over 33,000 employees are actually engaged in this transformation with us, and we're consistently looking for ideas how we can harness what they have and how we can take those things and scale them those concepts into real business challenges or to solve real business challenges. We've also been collaborating with great companies like GE, which opens up the possibilities of creating breakthroughs when we take our experts and their experts and we put them together. A few years ago, we stood up on the stage and we talked a lot about how we were going to create digital twins across a few of our generation assets to improve our performance. Last year, we got up on the stage and we actually talked quite a bit about how we've taken that and we've expanded that agreement, and now across all 32 gigawatts of our clean, affordable, reliable energy, we're scaling this APM solutions and the Predix platform. I'm happy to announce that we are on track by the end of next year that we will have Predix up and running across our entire generation portfolio. We're also, though, been looking a lot about how do we extend this past just asset performance, and how do we leverage the power of Predix to develop our own solutions for our digital workers. We're actually seeing that the growing digital workforce are embracing these technologies like never before. They're striving to provide challenging, best technology to streamline the operations. It's not only improving our internal productivity, but it's helping us attract and retain top talent. There are some examples that I'll talk you through here of some applications that we've been starting to develop, some in collaboration with GE and Apple that you've heard earlier in the announcements, and some that our teams are building themselves. The first one I'm going to talk about, you actually can see here in the slides, is APM Mobile. We've worked closely with GE and Apple. We've developed this application. We're early pioneering and testing it at real working conditions of a power plant. And it's given the ability of our field workers and our maintenance workers to have APM in their hands, not back at their desk, but where they are and where they're working out in the field. We've also started to look at solutions like this application that we've created we call Udentify. It allows our field workers, again, and eventually customers, to take pictures of equipment out in the field that has a defect and have that photo come back into Predix and do artificial intelligence and tagging of that defect and route it to the appropriate person. We've been piloting this now for the last few months, and we're pretty excited about some of the possibilities that this has. Another opportunity that we've created an application that we internally are calling EcoCred. We know our employees want to be more engaged with our sustainability goals. So we've built an application powered by Predix that allows the employees to understand their own personal carbon footprint and actions that they can do in either work, transportation, or their commute of how they can offset their carbon. We actually are very early in the development of this, but we see the potential that we can expand this application to other companies and past just the Exxon ecosystem. We're also inside this application using a gaming techniques and reward systems that EcoCred allows employees to take those credits and actually donate them to a good cause or actually bring them in for some type of nominal value. The reward system also then helps us see how these carbon emissions can be offset. So again, you can just see the power of this simple application. This is just the beginning of some of the applications that we've started to develop with Predix and with GE and the Apple announcements that we actually think are just the beginning, and the opportunities are going to continue to expand. Next, I'm going to actually bring up on stage one of my colleagues and friends within Exelon. It's our Vice President of Exelon Utilities and our Chief Analytics Officer, Brian Hurst.
Great job.
Thanks.
All right. Well, first of all, we could spend a day talking about all the great work that Brian Hoff and his team is doing to drive our innovation agenda across Exelon. But I'm here to talk to you in the short few minutes that we have about Exelon Utilities, a little bit about our journey and some exciting news at the end. We don't have a lot of time, so I tell you, let's buckle up and get moving here. A little bit around Exelon Utilities. If you look at us, we are made up of 6 regulated utilities that are made up of ComEd in Chicago. We have Baltimore Gas and Electric. We have PECO out in Philly, Pepco in the DC area, Delmarva Power, and also Atlantic City Electric. We have over 20,000 women and men that every day are serving 10 million customers, and they're doing this in a service territory that spans 24,000 miles. So that's a significant responsibility that we have on behalf of all our customers. Now, we've been in a journey for quite some time to focus on making investments in our smart grid and smart meter infrastructure, or automated metering infrastructure, if you will. And that has been an important step for us to drive automation and put intelligence out there in the network. And it's allowed us to set ourselves up for our utility of the future vision and set that backbone in place. So just like Gil talked about earlier, as we think about our utility, we're constantly thinking about how is it going to evolve over time, and how will disruption make that all change. So I always kind of like this slide because I always think back to what are those 4 immutable truths that are occurring. One is technology is accelerating, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir here and all of you in the room, but it's happening very quickly. We're also seeing For example, with smart devices and social media, our customers are interacting with us with new ways that we haven't thought of before. I just saw a stat the other day that one of the fastest growing segments on Twitter is grandparents, and it just scares me because my mom about a year ago started using Facebook, and she lives in a dinky town in northern Michigan. We could actually put the population in the room here. So the thought of her actually being on Twitter is a pretty mortifying concept. Another little fun stat, and this is great as you all head out and grab lunch a little bit later on, but I've heard that there are now more smartphones in the world than there are toothbrushes. So just keep that in mind as you, have some food a little bit later on. Data's exploding. We know this, right? In our own business, the 8.5 million smart meters that we had on the page before, in the old days, that would generate about 120 million records per year in a traditional manual meter reading mode. But today we're generating over 150 billion records of data. And while our data may dwarf some other industries, for us, that's a significant opportunity. And we think about the grid that's generating more and more data every single day as we put intelligent devices out there, we put smart sensors, we put reclosures that give us more information on our assets. That's only going to grow significantly higher. And then what's even more exciting is we have a lot of unstructured data, social data, that we can really harvest and make a big impact for our operation. Everything's connected. I like to call it the Internet of Everything. We know that, and we think about our business, and we think about the utility model changing over time. We know distributed generation introduces a lot more connected points. What's our role as a utility between the prosumer and the consumer, kind of bridging that gap, and how will that unfold? So we're constantly looking at our vision and how to make that happen. And our customers, it's not that they're asking more of the utility, but they're asking us to deliver like they have experiences in other industries. So they want more choice, control, and convenience at the end of the day. So as part of understanding the utility future, we went on a vision or approach to develop a deliberate strategy around business intelligence and data analytics several years ago. And what we came up with, and we've been working very hard on this, is a 5-domain focus. And those 5 domains are largely around business support. So you think about all the supporting functions within the utility. A focus on the customer, and there's 2 elements. One around smart energy services. So it's all the use cases and the analytics behind it that allow us to present to customers more data about their energy consumption in new ways and new presentations that make that happen so they can take action. And number 2, it allows us to focus on customer analytics and the journeys and how do we really change that experience for our customers using analytics. And then our grid domain has really 2 categories. AMI, as I mentioned a minute ago, we're getting a lot more data. So how do we use that to understand theft and credit and collections and other factors in our business? And then it's all supported by our data analytics platform. This is our advanced data lake that we've built to support getting data to strategic partners, to equip our data scientists with opportunities within the utilities to take advantage of this data and support us down the road. But I think there's one domain I missed, and that's our grid transmission distribution domain. Our team's been working very, very hard over the past year to identify a number of use cases, and we just completed our sourcing event. And I'm really, really excited to tell and share with all of you that through a very competitive and thorough process, we have elected GE to continue on this journey with us in the utility business. So just as Brian talked about the progress we're making, on the utility side, we're going to continue this relationship, and we're going to take advantage of the GE Predicts platform as well as asset performance management, and obviously the talent of the GE team combined with us to really make a difference on the grid operations. There's 5 key use cases. I'm going to give you one quick example as I wrap up my time here to try to make this a little bit real. Think about the picture behind me. It's our service territory in Chicago. It's large. We have 5 key regions. And the way we prepare for storms today is to pre-position assets and resources to get out in front of it. But it's done based on past experience, right? We have to really make sure that we're very conservative in the approach. We have to be out there and ahead of it. But in tomorrow's world, and with the help of GE Predicts and the team, we're going to be much more surgical about how we think about pre-positioning assets out in the field. And it's going to do a couple things. It's going to allow us to make sure that we're providing high reliability. We do a great job of that today, but we always want to improve. Number 2, it's going to improve customer satisfaction. Number 3, it's going to allow us to continue to keep our prices low and affordable for our customers. And number 4, what I'm really excited about is, it's always our job one, is to make sure that we're being safe. So we think about our crews in the field, and in very difficult and inclement weather situations, we want to make sure that we're putting them in the right place. We want to make sure they get back home to their families just as they left that morning. So we are embarking on a journey. We're excited about this new relationship. We're going to have more to tell later on. But with that exciting news, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at GE Aviation, John Mansfield.
At this time, I'd like to introduce one of our customers and, more importantly, partner. Group Manager, Qantas Airlines, Murray Adams. Murray, welcome to Minds and Machines.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I want to thank you and Qantas for being a great customer of GE Aviation. And I want to thank you that you understand the value of data.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let me ask you a few questions, then we'll jump into the demo of the Flight Pulse application, which I was very pleased to see our CEO bring up this morning on his intro. It was actually the first demo, the first application actually built, mobile application built on the Predix platform, and it was really developed for the Qantas pilots. The edge-to-cloud platform continues to be a tremendous opportunity to connect engines, aircraft, and operations, and provide greater insight into the operations. As a little background, Qantas is the longest continually operating commercial airlines, having just celebrated their 97th year of operation. Qantas plays a prominent role in the aviation sector. Murray, what challenges are you seeing in the industry, specifically around airline operations?
Yeah. Last year, Qantas spent almost $3 billion on fuel. That represents over 20% of our operating costs, and also represents over 98% of our environmental footprint through carbon dioxide emissions. Qantas is also based in one of the region's most busy airports and has a long history of innovation. In the 1950s, we were the first airline to offer round-the-world services via both hemispheres. In the 60s, it was a Qantas engineer who invented the inflatable escape slide raft, and then in the 70s, we were the first airline to introduce business-class travel. We also have a very proud history of ultra-long-haul operations, having operated the world's longest commercial flight between Sydney and Dallas-Fort Worth, and then next year, creating a direct connection between Australia and Europe, operating Perth to London direct. Today's airline operations are experiencing increasing volumes of data coming off next-generation aircraft. There is a continual need to look at our operational efficiency to drive small changes that lead to sizable fuel savings. We need the ability to connect the data and insight with those who have the ability to make the changes and deliver the operational efficiency.
Talk to me about the outcomes that the joint GE-Qantas team needed to achieve.
There were really three key outcomes that were required. Firstly, we needed to create a connection. Using GE's flight analytics, we had a wealth of data and insight. We needed to get this data and insight in the hands of our pilots. Secondly, it was all about usability. We needed the product to be something that our users, in this case our pilots, wanted to use. And then thirdly, it was about user experience. We needed an intuitive tool that allowed the pilots to access and understand the data and insights really quickly and easily.
What was the collaboration experience like for your team?
Hope you don't mind me talking on GE's behalf here, but it was a great team experience. And it was the next successful step in our ongoing partnership. We had the ability to work with another innovative organisation, allowing us both to work to our strengths. Qantas, with our 97 years of experience and history in aviation innovation, and then GE, with your experience in design thinking, digital analytics, and creating the first mobile Predix application. We also worked collaboratively. Working together, we felt like we were one team. We were able to leverage our domain expertise and work with GE's IoT platform, Predix. The team really took the time to understand what was most beneficial to our pilots to achieve our operational goals.
That really helps frame the partnership well. What are the critical success factors for the collaboration?
This was a learning process for both of us, and the keys to the success were firstly framing. We really took the time to understand what we were trying to achieve and how we wanted to achieve it. Secondly, it was developing. It was working with a great group of pilots who were happy to tell us what they wanted and to give us some pretty frank feedback. And then it was improving. It was turning an idea into a fully functioning product in less than a year. And then it was closing the loop. It was really creating that feedback loop to our flight crew so that they could create their self-learning moments. You can't affect change unless you empower change, and we had to share this data and insight. In this case, it was with our pilots so they could drive the change.
Thanks for candidly sharing your insights in the collaboration process. Let's take a look at the app.
Sure, let me get my iPad. So what we're looking at here is the Flight Pulse application. This is actually one of our A380 captains who's volunteered for his data to be used here. What we can see up the top is we've got 6 tiles that show 6 practices, fuel-efficient practices, that we're focusing on with this fleet. We have the ability to tailor these practices based on the fleet and the operation that we're looking at. The particular practice we have highlighted here is engine out, taxi in. For those of you who might not be familiar with that, after the aircraft's landed and safely off the runway, the crew have the ability to shut down an engine because the aircraft doesn't require as much power to taxi into the gate. This creates a small fuel saving, and this is one of those examples where a small saving repeatedly adds up to be a sizable saving. What we're looking at on the top is the performance on the last 90 days. In yellow, we're looking at our individual captain. In purple, we're comparing them to the fleet average. Then down the bottom, we're showing the top 10 runways that this crew member's operated to in the last 12 months. Prior to Flight Pulse, it was really difficult for us to create that individual connection with the flight crew. We had the data, we were presented in aggregate, but we weren't getting it back to the individual. And particularly when we're looking at small savings, it's about reinforcing that small saving repeatedly adds up to be a big number. And that's where we can look at Flight Pulse again. We're showing that for this individual, he's saved over 2,500 kilos on this one practice in the last 12 months. And that over the 12 months, the fleet as a whole has saved over 125,000 kilos on a practice. But the power of all this information coming into the company really was something that we wanted to harness with our pilots and really create a connection like we never had before. So if we look at the detailed flights page, we can see we've got a flight here from Dallas to Sydney. Now, the aircraft is producing around 2 million data points per flight hour. In this case, this was a 17-hour, 31-minute flight. That's an incredible volume of data that's coming in. Harnessing the power of Predix, what we're able to do is take that data off the aircraft, blend it with other information elsewhere in the ecosystem, to then present it back to the pilot and give them insight. So let's have a look at another flight. If we look here at a Sydney to Los Angeles flight, we can see that the aircraft was planned to burn 156 tons of fuel, and it actually burned about 155 tons. So we can now, using that data and Predix, we can create the insight showing the information by phase of flight back to the individual crew member of how their flight performed. Now, if we dig a little bit deeper into the detail, we can actually see here, we're looking at planned versus actual. In terms of this particular flight, the planned path in green sits directly under the blue flight path for most of the flight, until we come into the arrival into Los Angeles, where it deviates. So let's drill into that a little bit closer. Now, if we have a look at that, we can see that the aircraft's actually been taken off its planned flight route, most likely to be sequenced into air traffic control into Los Angeles. That's a really quick overview of Flight Pulse and the power that we've got through Predix.
Thank you very much. So what's next for GE and Qantas?
We're really looking to grow the capability with Flight Pulse. We've got some really good feedback from the crew, and they're asking for more functionality. And we're doing this while we hunt for the next big challenge that we work on together. We have a few ideas. There's just such a wealth of data in the ecosystem. We need to continue to look at ways that we can connect this data with the needs of our business.
Mary, thank you for joining us today and sharing how Flight Pulse is helping you drive productivity in Qantas Airlines. As a frequent flyer, like many of us here, it's great to see Qantas really innovating to drive efficiencies in joining us on this digital journey. Again, we appreciate the collaboration very much. And lastly, I want to get into a deeper dive into the work we're doing with Qantas and other airlines. You can join us tomorrow for a breakout session. We'll take a closer look at how Flight Pulse was developed in collaboration with our customer and what's the future for the pilots. So thank you very much, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chief Digital Officer at Baker Hughes, a GE company, Matthias Heilmann.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Matthias Heilmann, and as one of the CDOs in GE, my passion is to digitally transform the oil and gas industry. And I want to share a couple of thoughts with you before I introduce one of our customers and partners as we are on this journey to make the oil and gas industry way better as we go. It's what a difference a year can make. We have come a long way as GE, and today, as the new Baker Hughes, a GE company, We have a wide variety of use cases here today to offer you, and I really encourage you to take a look at them down the Solution Fair. It makes a massive difference for our industry. And one of our aspirations, and the really exciting piece for us, is that we definitely, as a practitioner of asset performance management in our industry, using this as a core capability. But with the new GE and Baker Hughes combination, we're actually able to enrich the concept of digital transformation and ranging it across the entire oil and gas value chain. And what's exciting is that our aspiration is to take the concept of the digital twin from a pure asset-centric view and expand it into what in our industry we call the reservoir. Today we're able to create a digital twin of a reservoir and ranging it all the way from the well planning to well completion, all the way to construction and ultimately production. And this is, for our industry, a huge step forward. And you saw this earlier with John showing you the MRI of the brain. We are now capable of delivering insights based on data that drive actions based for a reservoir. So in addition to this we have now partners brought on board that allow us to truly transform our industry by creating real-time process optimization capabilities. So a lot of new capabilities have come on board, and we're truly honored and more or less pleased as well to have one of the true digital transformation practitioners here with us today, because I can talk about it all day long, but it's more important that a customer truly shares with you their experience in their specific company of how to drive digital transformation. And connecting the entire value chain seamlessly across the entire value stream is one of the things that I'm really pleased to announce today together here with the Hess Corporation. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you for a warm welcome for Mr. Brian Truloff, who is the Senior Vice President, Global Operations at the Hess Corporation, and he will share with you how our vision at GE to make the world a digital transformed enterprise, to make this real in the Hess Corporation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Matthias, for that introduction. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today to talk to you about the Hess Corporation and our digital journey. And I say digital journey, which has been actually part technology journey, but mainly a cultural journey. And I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that as we go through. We've come a long way from a single truck many years ago delivering oil to a global enterprise, as illustrated by the drill ship you see on the screen. That's actually one of our drill ships working at our Stampede project in the Gulf of Mexico in 3,500 foot of water. We have a mix of assets around the world, and digital is a key component of our story for success. And so I want to talk a little bit more about what digital means to Hess, and talk about the partnership that we have with Baker Hughes and with GE, and the combination of the two coming together being very powerful to us, Baker Hughes, a GE company. So what's unique about the oil and gas business? Well, let me start first of all saying about what's similar in the oil and gas industry to many of you out here, is that we have similar challenges and opportunities, and I feel like that we learn more from looking outside of our industry. And a great example of that is GE. We've learned a lot from the aviation business. We've already talked about on the jet engine turbines, about all the data that's being gathered from every trip, from every turbine. And I like the fact that GE talks about it's not the data from the single turbine that's important, it's the data from the fleet of turbines. And so we've taken that as we've applied that to predictive analytics and machine learning, and I'll touch on those learnings in a bit. The other one is from the healthcare arm of GE. When you think about the MRI that was developed, as mentioned earlier, and its ability to look for tumors and other issues, that's very much like what we use for seismic and looking for oil and gas prospects. So we have a lot to learn from each other in that regard as well. Also, a key learning from us from GE is around brilliant factories. And then finally, this whole concept of try lots of things, fail fast, and pivot. And we're trying to apply that into our company. And so as Satya mentioned earlier, as companies move from know-it-all to learn-it-all, we're moving to that learn-it-all, a company that's not afraid to try new things, that implements fast, and is value-focused. I mean, our factories are a bit different than what you may normally come across. They tend to be in remote locations around the world. Often they're more than 30,000 feet below the surface. We can't see most of our factory. They can be in harsh environments like in deep water. And we have high pressures and temperatures. But in many respects, our factories are very similar to what many of you have, and we learn a lot from the likes of each of you. We are currently in a low-price environment. As with any commodity industry, you go through those cycles. And for us, and the title of my talk is digital being an enabler and an imperative in a lower-for-longer environment. So let's talk about why digital is so important to Hess. Well, it comes in two areas. One is value creation and value protection, and both of those are extremely important. It enables us around production growth, reserve additions, adding additional resources, cash margins and capital efficiency. Those things are all, I'll give some examples of that as I go through my presentation, how digital has enabled that. But another key thing is around risk management, health, safety, and environmental improvement, and we see an enormous impact of digital in that regard. And we have a number of examples of that I'll touch on, particularly in the drilling area, and talk a bit more about that. And an important aspect for us, which may be a bit unique in the industry, is that lean and lean working is a foundational element of Hess. And we see the power of innovation, digital, lean coming together and forming something very, very powerful. So we can't do this alone. In our industry, we're a bit different perhaps in the regard that we partner with companies who sometimes can be our competitors in one area or partner in another area. And that's very important that we learn from each other. We bring the A-team and really try to work as one team. And a great example of that is the partnership we've had with both Baker Hughes and GE separately have been both strategic partners for us. We only have a handful of companies we'd consider strategic partners. Baker Hughes and GE were both of those and added tremendous value. Now the two companies coming together is creating something very, very special. And we're really excited about what that new entity, as well as GE Digital, can do for us as a company. I also have to call out another important partner, and that's Deloitte. They've been very key in developing our technology strategy, our innovation strategy, as well as our digital strategy. So there's a real power in these companies all working together as one team. Baker Hughes, a GE company, Deloitte, and Hess. So let me talk a little bit about the upstream oil and gas value chain for those who are not familiar with the business. And I'll talk about each aspect of the value chain and what we're doing to digitally enable that. We start on the exploration side. We go out and shoot seismic, which is really called like an MRI of the Earth. We're looking for those oil and gas prospects, and we're trying to oftentimes cover very, very wide areas of land, offshore or onshore. And a good example is Guyana, and working with our partners Exxon and Nexen, covering 17,000 square kilometers. And so you have a very, very large area you're trying to cover and shoot seismic over it, and then process that seismic as well as evaluate and interpret it. And so that's the very beginning. Drilling completions is the way that we access the oil and gas prospects. It's drilling the well down, sometimes more than 30,000 feet down. Project delivery is where we build these giant platforms offshore or our onshore locations in North Dakota. They range in complexity in our business. Production operations is how we actually produce the oil and gas, process it, send it through pipelines to the end customer. And then finally, a call out to our functions, whether they be HR, finance, health, safety, and environment, supply chain. They all work seamlessly in running our core business. In a digital world, all of these are connected. And one of the things we're doing within Hess is creating that connection from the very beginning of the value chain all the way through the very end of the value chain. In our business, the life cycle of an asset could be more than 30 years. But it's important we have that connection across one set of data, one version of the truth, you might say, that digital model that connects from beginning to end. And as Matthias just stated, our digital model is perhaps a bit different because we have digital models of the surface, our factory, as many people do, We have a digital model of the reservoir. And that reservoir is something that potentially changes over time. And so having that consistency is very important. So let me talk first of all about subsurface and this ability to build this digital twin at the very beginning. I mean, subsurface is where we identify where our prospects are. We stand up massive amounts of data. We do that through the cloud. The cloud is very important. There's no need for large data centers that were built in the past. You can stand up massive processing power and graphics power just as you need it, and you turn it off when you don't need it. I mean, that's a huge game changer for us because we do need to access lots of processing power to do what we need to do. We also look very much at the UX, the user experience. Every user out there, if they're in different roles, and it's persona-based type environment, if you're a geophysicist, you want to see your data stand up immediately so that you can use it. You want to be able to see it in a format that you can do your job. And you want to see what your team is working on. You don't want to be searching for data to be able to do that work, and you want to see it in a format that's tied to the function that you play in the organization. A production operator out in the field will want to see it in a different way. The key is you have a common data set across all of those parts of the business, and the user experience is extremely important in that. Let me turn to drilling. Interesting part of the business because this is one that probably a lot of people see or hear about. You talk about drilling rigs, and this is how we access the reservoir. And it's important that we do this safely and efficiently and effectively. We drill wells all over the world, sometimes in remote and harsh environments. And because of that, Hess has a remote operations center based in Houston, hopefully the home of the future World Series champions. I had to do that one for John. But that center, it was a good example of a cultural change within Hess. Because when we first stood up that center, you had a group of experts sitting in Houston monitoring the wells that we were drilling around the world. Initially, the folks on the rigs thought, there's somebody watching, kind of like Big Brother. They're second-guessing everything I do. It quickly turned into, they've got my back. Because I'm out there in the field, I'm having to make some critical decisions with the data, the skills, the experience I have on hand, and it's very reassuring to know that you have someone out there that's watching your back. So that's why at the beginning I said this is more like a cultural change for us than just a technology change. We also have been working for many years with Baker Hughes on digital abilities around how we steer the bit, how we gather the data from the wells, how we make better decisions and all that. And we see that continuing to expand in the future, potentially being able to automate rigs more effectively. And I see, again, a key role for Baker Hughes and GE in this world. As we move to the production side of the business, and we look at a systems approach with both lean and digital working together. We see that predictive analytics, lessons that we've had from GE on turbines, is absolutely key for this. We see that exception-based surveillance, which is how we use the data that's coming in to be sure our people are focused on just the things they need to work on. And we use that both onshore and offshore. So what you see on the screen right now is our Stampede tension leg platform. This is currently sitting in 3,500 foot of water, about 120 miles off the coast of Louisiana. Very complex project. You can see some of the stuff, the kit that's on the seafloor. And using a lean approach as well as a technology and a digital approach has enabled us to now deliver this massive multi-billion-dollar project 6 months ahead of schedule. And I realize 6 months is extremely important. In our industry, rarely do you see projects of this size delivered under budget and ahead of schedule. 6 months, put that in perspective. A deepwater drilling rig spread rate cost over $1 million a day. So through lean, innovation, digital, we've been able to deliver a major project like Stampede ahead of schedule like that. And so it's all of those coming together which has made that happen. When I think about the oil field of the future, we're just really at the cusp of something very exciting. And it's really good to have Baker Hughes GE and GE as partners on this journey, because I think there's a lot that we can do together. Predictive analytics, we use that across all of our fields to anticipate where there might be issues and opportunities and address those before they become a problem. Again, it's the the data we collect from all the wells, not just the single well, kind of like the turbines looking across the fleet, that's very important. And it's those insights that we're able to achieve from that that gives us the ability to create value. Machine learning. This is an interesting part in that we're able to take the learnings we have collectively across a number of folks and be able to apply machine learning and how on the seismic side, on the drilling side and elsewhere. And I had heard recently that someone said that, you know, we're in the age of, instead of computers assisting humans, humans assisting computers. Now, this has been a big cultural change, and if you're a radiologist and you have a machine learning applied to an MRI, you can say, machine could never do my job. We have the same cultural change issues as well about how we evaluate seismic, how we drill wells, but what we're finding through machine learning is we're able to take that skill set, knowledge, experience across thousands of people, and we're getting smarter and smarter and smarter at that. And we're really creating value from that. Another point we've done is on robotic process automation. This has been a real game changer for us. This is taking the repetitive tasks and being able to automate those. I was at a location recently where a team was proudly showing off an RPA that said, this just replaced 8 of our team members. And I didn't know whether to smile or to frown. But what that had done was enabled those 8 people to be freed up to work on higher value adding work. So this is a real game changer. Again, a cultural change. And then the final point that I've already touched on is this ability to pull up massive processing and graphics power through the cloud like we've never been able to do before, and give those insights and visibility to where those opportunities lay for us. So I've given you a quick look at the business and what digital is doing for us. We see the impact of digital across the full value chain, the shared data from the beginning to the end. This common digital model is extremely important to create the most value from the resource. As we've said, it's really about the rock, about the resource, how we create that most value and do it in a safe and environmentally sensitive way. It really is about digital enablement of our key strategic areas, and it really is about a cultural change, changing the way we do work, delivering bottom line value, and creating the Hess way of working. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Jennifer Hartsock.
Okay, so you've had the opportunity to hear from these 3 different industry leaders on their story of where they are in this digital industrial transformation journey. Each of them represents a different point in the journey, and you heard how they're extracting real productivity and benefits through a partnership between the entire organization, change management, digital enablement, and all of it together. So continuing on that theme of digital innovation, we wanted to take a moment to recognize 5 of our GE customers in various stages of their transformation and what they're doing. This 2017 Digital Innovator Awards recognize our customers in one of a few categories. Those that are showing excellence in how they visualize, how they optimize, and how they innovate. And then we have another award focused on exceptionally innovative use of GE services. So we'd like to take a moment and congratulate the following customers. Under visualizing enterprise data, we have Qantas. Optimizing operations, you heard a lot about these in Hubco. Optimizing operations with Saudi Electric Company. Innovating new digital opportunities with the Port of Los Angeles. And making innovative use of GE services with Faramex. So please join me in congratulating these customers on where they are in their journeys. All right, so hopefully you had the opportunity to hear and think about how all of this could apply into your businesses. This is a journey, and it starts by simply thinking about where you are and how fast you can progress through these steps. But they're incredibly important steps. In the oil and gas industry, we heard from Hess, where they have a great deal of data in certain parts of their businesses. But in other customers that I've spoken to in oil and gas, others are still working on the data collection and visualization step. It doesn't matter where you are, it matters where you're going. So when you think about what you're going to be doing over, hopefully, what you've heard this morning, as well as visiting the tech halls, the breakout sessions, the collaboration that you'll have the opportunity to do with your peers at other companies and other tangential industries, you can see yourself creating a plan to implement digital industrial transformation for your company. Because at the end of the day, we're in this with you. This is our journey together. We want to see you succeed as much as we want to see ourselves succeed through this. So together, we believe we can make this truly transformational. So please enjoy the rest of your conference and have a great afternoon.